Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Anfield for the latest edition of the Gary Neville podcast, which comes right off the back of Liverpool 0, Manchester United 0, which, Gary, listen, in context, for United certainly represents a decent point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was 99.9% sure I would be talking about a Manchester United defeat during this podcast. That point one was it wasn't coming into my head very often. I just felt as though they were in such poor form, such a horrible week. So many injuries. Their record against the top teams away from home is shambolic. But they've somehow come away from Anfield with a clean sheet, which I say I'm completely shocked. Liverpool obviously were the better team, but Liverpool were well below par, and I think that the atmosphere today, something in this ground. I mean, you mentioned it was the third highest Anfield crowd for 50, 60 years.
Yep.
That new stand's just opened over there. And I've often talked about the ferocity of this atmosphere in this ground in Liverpool Manchester United games in the first 20 minutes. The atmosphere was not here today. I have to say that's the first time the worst atmosphere I've seen generated from a Liverpool crowd during a game against Manchester United. I've never seen it so quiet, and I don't know why that is. It's a question for Liverpool fans, but it made it a lot more comfortable for the home team.
Well, perhaps it had to do with expectation, did it?
Yeah, the away team. Look, one thing I will say is there was definitely a little bit of arrogance from Liverpool going into this game. Not the players necessarily, but sometimes what you're feeling from the outside goes into it. I didn't have anybody. The amount of times that 7-0 was said to me, or you're going to get a good doing over today in the lead up to this game as I was walking around the ground by Liverpool fans, was unbelievable. They were so cocksure of themselves. And maybe that's just sort of this week just got into the players a little bit somehow at Liverpool. I mean, Jurgen Klopp's not complacent, and the team aren't complacent from a point of view of not there. They work hard, and there's no sort of like. But they've thought today, I think, the crowd, that they'll just, and the players maybe, that they'll just have to turn up and beat this really poor Manchester United team, and it's not happened. And they'll be kicking themselves in that dressing room because they were well below par. They really were poor, Liverpool.
So, from a Liverpool perspective, given, listen, as we always say, they're just human beings, and so they can't be brilliant every week. They chiselled out a point as well, which won't necessarily satisfy them over a weekend when City have also dropped points and Arsenal have gone to the top. Where are Liverpool in the big mix now?
Yeah, I mean, both teams, I think, as they get into that dressing room, I mean, a half-decent team would have beaten Liverpool today. A half-decent Manchester United team would have, gone all over that Liverpool team. And Liverpool, to be fair, where does that leave them? Look, I mean, they've had a good start to the season. This is the first time I've seen them live in probably a month or two. And I've been asked, obviously seen them on television, but I've been asked a couple of times, will Liverpool win the league? I don't think they will. I thought that before the game today. The Klopp factor is something that's always interesting because he's done the distance, and I think some of the players in that dressing room have been in major battles with Manchester City and obviously overtaken them in one season, so they know their way around the block. But they're short, I think, in terms of the overall sort of what will be level. And I think Arsenal next week, look, it'll be a different game. Every game's different. We're doing the Liverpool-Arsenal game here next week, and it'll be another good test for Liverpool. And it'll be a good test for Arsenal from where they are as well. But an Arsenal team playing as they are, and Liverpool playing as they playing today, Arsenal win next week here if the performances levels are the same. So yeah, it was a really flat day. It was a really sort of a weird sort of day, in Liverpool. But Liverpool, they're near the top of the league and they've done pretty well. I go back a few months when they missed out on the two central midfield players that went to Chelsea, the holding midfield players, and we all thought Liverpool would struggle this season a little bit because they haven't got a holding midfield player. So where they are at this moment is a surprise to us all, and they're doing really well. So we shouldn't, kick them too much today for what's happened. But that was a poor performance. The play in the final third was so sloppy, and yeah, they were well off it. Just not themselves at all.
I'm just trying to work out whether you as a Manchester United supporter are expressing satisfaction at what you saw, because on the one hand you're not saying they played especially well, but on the other hand they've got something out of Anfield which hasn't happened often in recent years.
Who, Manchester United?
Yeah.
Oh no, Manchester United played really poorly. I mean, look, they had a 10-15 minute period when Szoboszlai went off and they had the Trent Alexander-Arnold and Endo in midfield, and it was a 4-2-4 where you thought, there were 2 or 3 counter-attacks. But Manchester United today out on that pitch, let's be clear, I mean, look, it's a good result because it's a draw at Anfield, and you can never dismiss a draw at Anfield, but that's not a performance. I mean, that's just, we killed Mourinho a few years ago for coming here and playing like that and getting a 0-0. So I think the fact that they've actually been a bit more resilient defensively is good, and the fact they've kept a clean sheet is good. But in terms of level of performance that will win you football matches, no. I mean, it's well off it. But you have to give some credit to the defenders and the way in which the whole team stuck together, because I didn't think they had it in them. Before the game, I saw the team. I thought, how can that keep a clean sheet? That's at least conceding 2 or 3 goals. So you have to, give them credit for that, and you have to say well done to them, because it's been a tough week for them. I can't imagine how difficult it's been. The criticism that they've received, everyone's on at them, including us. And the fact of the matter is, they've walked out here tonight with a little bit of respect, which is important. But as a performance, I mean, Erik ten Hag knows what performance looks like. Those players have all played in better team performances than that. But, second half, they grew a little bit. They passed it around a little bit at times. But it wasn't a great performance. In fact, they were waiting to get beat, but just Liverpool couldn't beat them because their quality of play was poor.
Okay, let's widen out in terms of the title race. Manchester City, how are you reading what's going on there at the moment?
I'm not just saying it, I expected this, post-treble. I said it at the start of the season that I tipped Arsenal for the league. Manchester City could win the league by 10 points. So I say that every time I do this interview. But I just felt post-treble, you cannot reach that high in your life and then stay there. You just can't. You have to dip after that. There's always a little bit of there's always that sort of feeling that, we can just go out and we don't have to maybe do the things that we did to climb the mountain. And what's happening is they're getting a little bit of a, clip round the ear. They're getting a bloody nose from time to time. And yesterday again, and I used the word complacency a few weeks ago. I stand by it. I know Pep Guardiola snapped back, but there's no doubt that when you sort of don't play at the levels that you should do, and you're thinking that it's just going to happen, and you get 2-0 up, and you get, thinking things are just going to sort of ease its way to the end of a game, it doesn't work like that. And that's what happens when you are a touch complacent, when you just step off the gas a touch. But it's giving teams a chance. It's giving Arsenal a chance. It's giving Villa. It's giving Liverpool. It's giving all the teams a chance. And everyone that plays City now feels they can get a point off them. But it could turn in the new year. For City, it could be that they're just a little bit bored, a little bit sort of the games aren't motivating them as much because they've achieved such a great, feat last season. They could get to February, the games start coming thick and fast. They're in the Champions League. The knockout phases of that, the big league games start coming up, the adrenaline starts running, all of a sudden the football and the seriousness and the concentration and the focus start, and that's when City are dangerous. So these are the teams at this moment in time, they've got to get a fair few points lead, because they'll need that lead, because City will hunt them down, and they could overtake them if they're not very good themselves in the running.
Do you think we as a football watching public overreact these days to every spillage of points by any of the big teams? Because we've got into this mindset in the City era of 95, 6, 8, 100 points to win the Premier League. And perhaps, actually, this time they will all spill a few points and somebody will win it with 88.
Yeah, but that's true. I mean, look what they've achieved in the last few years. They've been absolutely off the scale sensational in terms of the points tally. But if you set a standard, that's your standard. If you drop below that, then people are obviously going to say it's a drop in standards. And that's all we're saying. It's un-City-like. It's not Pep. It's not what we see from Pep's team. I mean, what's the record? They've not won in 5 out of the last 6 league games or something. I can't remember what it is. But they've had some real difficult moments in the last few weeks. They drop points that you would never expect them to drop. And yeah, you get a little bit of people aren't whacking them. I mean, we're not sat here saying City are rubbish or they're appalling. I mean, we sat here and said that Manchester United over the last few weeks have been shambolic. Manchester City are just below their level, but they've built up so much credit in the bank over the last few years that they're allowed that few months off at the start of a season where they do drop below the level, and they're still only a few points off the top of the league. So they're still in the mix, and they're still where you would want to be in the pack, ready to go. And if they're there in February, they'll be incredibly dangerous. But the reason I've said Arsenal are going to win the league is I'm banking on, those little bits of injuries you get post-treble, that little bit of post-treble sort of what would be complacency or drop-off that you get. And I'm banking on Arsenal keeping their main players fit. I do think Arsenal are the only challengers for City. I never bought into the Liverpool thing. That was before today. It could happen just because purely Klopp. They could do something in January in terms of strengthening that midfield that could make them sort of go that little bit closer. But I do feel Arsenal are a better team than Liverpool.
And I've got to say Villa to you because they're there.
Absolutely.
So?
Yeah, I mean, Villa at this moment in time, it's brilliant what Unai Emery's done at Aston Villa. I think they'll drop back slightly as the season progresses. But what they're doing, we should all enjoy, because we always want that disruption at the top of the league. We don't want it to be that sort of franchise football where the top 6 are the top 6 forevermore. We want that sort of newcomer in there. We want that sort of surprise, and we want that team that have maybe struggled like Villa have over the last 10, 15 years. It's not been easy for Aston Villa fans, but they're a great club. And for them to be where they are at this moment in time, they deserve it, and we're all enjoying watching it. And in the next few weeks, they play at Old Trafford, don't they, as well, on Boxing Day. Yeah, so I look forward to that. It'll be a great match. So I like the fact that Villa are up there. We need that in the Premier League. It just sort of reminds the top six, the ones that are spending huge amounts of money, that it's not just going to be about them. There are going to be other people coming into them, for the fight with them and can take their places.
Actually, this weekend, of course, the most affecting moment in the Premier League happened in a game, as it happens, between probably the two smallest clubs in the league, Luton and Bournemouth, and we couldn't let this conversation go without a word for Tom Lockyer. And the scenes around that, Gary, I don't know how it affected you, but for me were just a reminder that we're dealing with people. These are people who care about each other, and we can hate them and love them and cheer for them and boo them, but this is a bloke who's just a good pro. He's not a superstar. He's a good pro who is, with his little club, has got in the Premier League, and this happens. And anybody who feels sport or humanity is caught up in that, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just completely rocks your Saturday, doesn't it? I was there yesterday afternoon, sort of watching the results come through, and then you see this obviously happen, and it just completely stops you in your tracks. And makes you realise about the human side of sport, of life, and what the important things really are. And we send all our best wishes and love to Tom Lockyer, to his family, to his friends. We hope he's okay and that everything's great for him in the coming weeks. And like you say, the way in which it was dealt with yesterday was classed by everybody in that stadium. And I have to say, it's something that's more important. You think about coming towards Christmas time as well, where you spend a lot of time with your family. These things are far more important than obviously the red cards and the yellow cards and the other things that we get wound up about week in, week out, that I get wound up about week in, week out. And something like this really, like you say, it just puts it into perspective.
It surely does. And so a week to Christmas. You'll be back next Saturday, will you, with more, do you think?
Yes, Liverpool. Oh, I've got
Liverpool, Arsenal.
Liverpool, Arsenal. Got Friday night football. I think it's Villa and Sheffield United.
Yes, yeah.
And then we pop over to here again to see our friends in Liverpool. And they'll want this game. They've got, obviously, I think, the Carabao Cup midweek. That's really important for Liverpool, by the way, the Carabao Cup. They've got to go and win a trophy. Go and win a trophy. That one is there for the taking this year. So go and win your game in midweek, get back on track, and then you've got a massive game against Arsenal. And we could be sat here next weekend, Liverpool and Anfield breathtaking, and the atmosphere absolutely wonderful, and saying, right, okay, that was just a blip last weekend against Manchester United. The crowd were a little bit off it. The team were a little bit off it on the pitch. Maybe the expectation going into the game that they were going to win by 8 and 9 and 10 has sort of just hit them a little bit. But against a really good Arsenal side, they come here and they win. That's where we could be next weekend. But for Arsenal, they'll look at that game and they'll think, right, we can cause real problems and we can get in about them and we can really damage Liverpool and put their title chances sort of in perspective if we come here and win next week. And for Arsenal, what happened here last season was painful. They played unbelievably in that first half an hour. And then obviously what happened after that set them off on it was a turbulent, shall we say, last 8, 9, 10 games. So they'll be fresh in their minds. And we always used to say, and I've said this many times since I finished playing football, coming to Anfield is a true test of whether you can be champions, whatever point in the season that you come here, because this is the ultimate test for a team to come and play a big match in, because the crowd can be at you. They haven't been today, and I want to say it again, but they usually are right at you in your faces, get on top of you, and Arsenal have got to contend with that next week.
That's a belter to look forward to. As indeed, as Gary says, is the whole of the pre-Christmas week. Lots of fabulous football this week on Sky Sports, and Gary will be watching lots of it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Peter.
Gary.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you.